constitutional attorney and Victory News contributor Rick Green. Rick, I want to go over what the governor said in his statement at the beginning of March. Today, I'm issuing a new executive order. All businesses of any type are allowed to open 100%, also ending the statewide mask mandate. Under no circumstance can a county judge put anybody in jail for not following COVID orders, and no penalties can be imposed for failing to wear a mask. Your thoughts?
Well, first, I just want to say I'm embarrassed as a Texan. I'm embarrassed as a believer that this happened in Texas and that it happened in a church in Texas. I've been pretty harsh on Governor Abbott. I think he created the environment of fear that is causing this very thing, not only in churches, but businesses across the country. If he had led better, then I don't think we would see this happening in these churches. Now, listen, I don't want us to miss, the forest for the trees here. This is not about whether or not a private business can have someone removed that's disturbing the peace or doing something like that. This was a pregnant mom with a 1-year-old taking communion, kneeling down in prayer. That is not disturbing the peace. That is not breaking the law. It is not violating the rules of the church. In fact, she was following the rules of the bishop that's actually in charge by continuing to attend Mass and take communion. This may sound pretty harsh, but listen, I think this pastor should be removed for berating this young woman. I think the people that sat there in silence should be shamed for not standing up for this young pregnant woman, for not being willing to at least say something about it. There was an usher, Greg, that was chanting, "Lock her up." This is our sister in Christ. This is a young pregnant woman simply trying to serve the Lord. It's an absolute embarrassment. And I almost feel like channeling the Apostle Paul and saying, get your act together, because if you don't do it before we get there and show up in person, you're going to regret it. I mean, this is awful. And again, it's the environment of fear. We should be saying, don't be timid, don't be afraid, be bold, be of power, love, and a sound mind, and the church of all places. No science to back this up. This is abuse of a member of the church.
And so officially the church's response is the parish will not comment until they have direction from the diocese in that. But I want to go back to this. I keep thinking about it. No penalty can be imposed for failing to wear a mask. She was removed from her church service and told not to go back there. That's a penalty. Am I wrong?
Well, it's not a penalty from the state, so I think there is some nuance there. But see, here's our problem. We tend to, as conservatives and constitutionalists and those that follow the law, to seize on the nuance and in any way and always say private property rights, free enterprise, all of those things. But then the left can turn around and use the government to force LGBT on us, to force all kinds of things on us. The government gets involved and requires you to make your sinks a certain size, your bathroom doors a certain size, your bulbs, water through your toilet, all these things. So we let the government do that. And we're not going to say that we should have some protections for members of this church. And certainly, and even if government's not involved here, we as the church, even though it's not our particular denomination or our particular sect of Christianity, we should be saying to our fellow Christians out there, let's start paying attention to truth. There is no basis in truth for requiring this young mom to do something that, frankly, for her is unhealthy, to take these masks in and out. They got bacteria, requiring her to breathe that when she's pregnant. It's unhealthy. And for us as Christians to force that on someone, shameful.
And she was experiencing morning sickness that morning. I don't want to necessarily comment from you on this or answer this question. Maybe it's more rhetorical. I wonder if this parish would be interested in taking in people who were crossing the border and care for those children. Just makes me wonder. Mike, I'll pitch it to you.
Greg, yesterday on Victory News, we reported on the brutal attack of an Asian woman in Manhattan. And New York City police say they have made an arrest and that the suspect was out on parole after serving time for killing his own mother. In this video of the attack caught on camera, you can see bystanders just stand there doing nothing to help the woman.
I am so sick of standing here demanding something to be done for my people. She is lying in the hospital right now. We don't know who she is. We don't know how to help her. Everybody's reaching out to me because the community wants to stand by her.
This attack happened amid a rash of anti-Asian violence across the U.S. The lone assailant was seen on surveillance video knocking the 65-year-old woman in the stomach, knocking her to the ground and stomping on her face. All, as police say, he shouted anti-Asian slurs at her. According to the New York Post, the suspect, 38-year-old Brandon Elliott, was arrested at about 2 a.m. this morning. Police say Elliott now faces a number of charges, including assault as a hate crime and attempted assault as a hate crime. Elliott reportedly lives in a nearby hotel that serves as a homeless shelter. Well, some action is being taken by the White House when it comes to the increasing amount of violence against Asian Americans. UPI is reporting on Tuesday the White House announced a $49.5 million grant program for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities. The White House action also includes reinstating the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, establishing a COVID-19 Equity Task Force Committee, and establishing a Department of Justice cross-agency initiative to address anti-Asian violence. And when it comes to economic growth, there's no place quite like the red states. According to the latest data from the Department of Commerce, it has been conservative states that have been the economic engine during this pandemic. According to a report released by the department, South Dakota, Utah, and Texas led the country in GDP in the fourth quarter of 2020. Each of those states is considered a red state, as they are led by Republicans from the governor's office and throughout the state assembly. Real GDP for the U.S. as a whole increased at an annual rate of 4.3%. Well, take one listen to Democrats in recent days, and you'll hear that when they're not busy blaming President Trump for Joe Biden's border crisis, all they can seem to discuss is their next $3 or $4 trillion infrastructure bill. While the details of the bill are still being hashed out a little bit, it's clear to experts that the bill amounts to a massive federal power grab and is filled with wasteful spending. Now, here is what we know about the bill thus far. We know that the bill will cost taxpayers somewhere between $3 and $4 trillion and include a broad scope outside of traditional infrastructure projects, such as combating climate change, Green New Deal programs, and income equality. Now, to pay for the massive spending bill, Joe Biden is expected to propose the biggest federal tax increase in decades, raising corporate income taxes back to the 28% rate before President Donald Trump's Tax Cuts and Job Acts of 2017, and increasing the marginal tax rate on high earners. Joe Biden unveiled this massive infrastructure a short time ago in Pittsburgh. Greg, back to you.
Well, many Republicans are likely hoping Donald Trump will run again for president in 2024. In his first on-camera interview since leaving the White House, the 45th president indicates there's a good chance. Take a listen as his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, interviews the former commander-in-chief.
The beginning of this interview, I said, this is one thing everyone always asks me. The other question people all want to know, and I know you're not ready to answer it yet, but do we have hope that there's a possibility to see Donald Trump run again in 2024?
You do have hope. That I can tell you. You do have hope.
Laura Trump's interview with her father-in-law was posted on Facebook briefly before the social media giant took it down. The company said they do so since the former president is indefinitely suspended from their platform. If Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are a bit too controlling for you, a new social media site coming soon may be right up your alley. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, who was kicked off Twitter in January, has been talking up the site, which will be called Frank. According to the Epic Times, Lindell describes Frank as a mixture of YouTube and Twitter with a core idea about being free speech in our speech. Frank is supposed to launch sometime between April the 5th and April the 12th and be able to handle more than 1 billion users. Rick Green, let me bring you in on this. So many things there, from a massive tax increase and things. It seems like politicians don't understand that corporations don't pay taxes, that they pass that along to their customers and their vendors and their employees, yet they're going to continue to do it, aren't they?
No doubt about it. And a tax increase like this is definitely going to be passed on to us and hurt the economy as well. And Greg, if you don't mind me backing up to one of your stories, I just want to encourage people. We should never applaud laws that single us out based on the color of our skin or based on our nationality. So even these efforts that would raise a crime depending on who that crime is committed against, That's a throwback to segregation. That's the idea that we're going to treat people different based on the color of their skin rather than, as Reverend MLK said, the content of our character. And the crime that's happening right now, what happened to that lady is awful. The same thing happened on a subway a day before. And all these people just continue to just sit by. There was a security guard watching that one happen and sit by and watch it happen and do nothing, whether it's the church where the gal is removed or it's this violent crime in the streets. We've got to start being our brother's keeper. We've got to start standing up for our friends and our neighbors. And we've got to tell government crime against anyone, regardless of the color of their skin, should be treated the same. Stop letting the criminals out. That's how you prevent this kind of thing. I'm sorry, that's not what you asked me.
No, that's absolutely true. And I want to echo that. It's absolutely true, because that man that was arrested, he was on parole, but what he was in prison for was killing his mother. Yet we let him out.
And we're doing it all over the country. They're letting out the criminals and then spending their time coming after the law-abiding for the smallest thing. So we've really got a two-tier justice system. I say that to say we've got a lot of work to do, not to say give up, it doesn't work, but to say we got to pay attention to these things. And that's one reason I think even on this whole thing against Asian Americans, it's a shame what is happening right now, but we need to make sure that we're treating crime the same, no matter who it is committed against.
There's a reason why Lady Liberty is blinded with the scales in her hand. You're absolutely
right. Blind justice.
You're absolutely right. Mike, let me pitch it back to you.
Greg, Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz says he is under federal investigation for an alleged sexual relationship with an underage girl. On Tuesday evening, the representative from Florida's 1st District said he and his family have been targeted in an extortion plot. No word yet from any federal authorities about the investigation. And Susan Rice is back. After mostly operating behind the scenes in the Biden administration, she's about to get some face time. The former national security advisor in the Obama administration is best known for how she spun the cause of the deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, back in 2012. Well, currently serving as an assistant to the president for domestic policy, an executive order signed by the president earlier this month named Susan Rice as Joe Biden's point person on directing hundreds of federal agencies to expand mail-in voting. Mail-in voting was a key factor in Joe Biden's victory in 2020. Greg?
All right, I want to bring Rick Green in here. It's going to be interesting, Rick, to see how Congressman Gaetz is treated compared to Governor Cuomo, but that's a whole nother subject. Your thoughts today of what we've heard on the news so far?
Well, yeah, that hypocrisy certainly will continue. I was really intrigued by the story about Mike Lindell's social media platform and the fact that they're calling it Frank. You know, I used to say on the stage sometimes, I'd say, to be Frank, and then I would stop and go, no, I should be Rick, not Frank. It's just an interesting name that they chose for the social media platform. But remember this whole Donald Trump thing on Facebook. It's not just that he's banned. They actually said the voice of Donald Trump is not allowed. So you cannot play a video that has the voice of Donald Trump in it. That's how much he lives in their heads. That's how much it drives them crazy just to hear his voice. But that should concern all of us that we have a platform that big that would actually prevent you from even posting a video. Even if you were criticizing Donald Trump, based on that rule, you would not be able to have that civil discourse and that discussion and debate with your friends on Facebook.
Well, if you're an impersonator, you're in trouble, all right, because you'll never get on there. And you better share this program today before this has the potential then, doesn't it? Before we go today, I want to go over to Tim Fox, who's in Del Rio, Texas, on the southern border. Tim, give us an idea of what you've got planned for us in the next couple of days.
Well, Greg, over the next couple of days, we are going to be around here and near here getting some interviews and finding out just what's going on here. Tomorrow morning, we are scheduled to have a drive with a police officer, a ride-along, as they call it. So we are looking forward to that. Hopefully that will come to fruition. I will leave you with this, Greg. This is the Victory Channel's 3rd trip down here to the border. That's 3 times more than the president, 3 times more than the vice president. In fact, it's 3 times more than pretty much anybody in the administration. That's pretty much all you need to know.
There you go. Well, speaking of that, before I go back to Rick Green on this, the vice president was asked if she was going to go, because she's in charge of all this on the border now. She was asked if she was going to go. Let me play you a clip with her response.
Do you have plans to visit the border?
Not today.
Not today. And that seemed to be funny, Rick.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to buy the website, Agent Frank Lopez for Governor. That guy was fantastic. I don't know where Tim got him, but he's a chaplain and obviously has common sense, and he knows what needs to be done to protect our border. I mean, we got to pray for these border agents, just like you said. This is a dangerous situation down there. But isn't it great to know that we have great Americans like Frank out there? They know exactly what needs to be done. That tells you there are answers, there are solutions. We know all of the right answers come from the Word of God. If we'll apply that, and like he said, if we'll get active, I hope a lot of people go to his event. And just thrilled to see Tim down there covering, as Mike did a few days ago. But thanks to Victory for covering the things that a lot of networks out there are refusing to touch.
You're absolutely right. Thank you, Rick, for being part of it. And it is common sense. And I think that's why they're tuning in, Victory,